I feel like this year has been a terrible year for WWE, and it's all been Triple H's fault. For years, us fans were begging to see him take over from Vince McMahon. We honestly believed that he would turn the company around and deliver the version of WWE that we wanted to see, and for a while, it looked like he might actually do it. But wow, have we been let down in 2025. It started in January with the Women's Royal Rumble. Bayley had all the momentum with the fans behind her and the perfect setup for a WrestleMania moment. But instead of paying that off, Triple H went with Charlotte, yet again. Then we got to WrestleMania itself, and somehow things managed to get worse. Bayley didn't just lose her push, she was written off the card completely, so Becky Lynch could go in her place. It felt like the company threw away months of hard work just to hit the reset button, and fans were pissed about that. And the bad WrestleMania choices didn't stop there. Randy Orton is a legend who's got limited time left in the ring, and yet he was given a match that barely lasted over 3 minutes with Joe Hendry. It was a complete waste of a legendary superstar on the biggest show of the year. Then came the moment that broke a lot of people, the finish to the John Cena match. Instead of delivering the payoff that everyone expected, Triple H booked an ending involving Travis Scott rather than The Rock, and it sucked the air out of what was supposed to be the biggest match of the weekend. By the time WrestleMania was over, the optimism around Triple H's booking had totally evaporated. Every time someone built real momentum in 2025, WWE either cut it short or acted like it never happened. Take the New Day for example. They were the hottest heels in the company. After turning on Big E, fans were genuinely excited to see where this version of the team would go, but instead Triple H booked them like he didn't know what to do with them. They drifted through meaningless TV segments and were barely on Raw, and even their WrestleMania story felt thrown together at the last second. They won the tag team titles at that show, but nobody cared because we weren't given any reason to care. Then less than 2 months later, they dropped the belts and became stepping stones for everyone else in the division. That's how fast their momentum disappeared. Then there was R-Truth. His contract expired in June, and the news shocked everyone, including the roster. Fans and wrestlers pushed hard for WWE to bring him back, and they did. He returned with all this goodwill behind him, and he closed Money in the Bank by attacking John Cena. Then he switched to the Ron Killings persona, and it looked like he was going to get something serious to do. But just as quick as it started, the entire angle was dropped. Then you've got the Wyatt Six. They spent 2024 building all this mystique around them, and then they disappeared without explanation. When they came back in May, they looked lost. Fans couldn't tell if they were faces or heels, and apparently WWE couldn't tell either. Instead of using them as a major attraction, Triple H dumped them into the SmackDown Tag Team division like he had no plan for them at all. They eventually won the titles, but it didn't mean anything because there was no real story behind it. A big problem with Triple H is that he only pushes who he wants, not who the fans want, and that is frustrating to watch for all of us. We hated this about Vince's booking. We spent years watching him ignore the fans and forcing his mostly terrible favourites into the spotlight. He acted like we didn't matter, and somehow Triple H has slipped into that exact same habit. Look at LA Knight, one of the most naturally over wrestlers the company has had in years. Every show the crowd was into him, every segment he delivered great reactions, and yet Triple H turned him into an upgraded jobber. He spent 2025 getting fed to people that Triple H actually wanted to push. LA Knight is better than half the roster on the mic, and he connects with every audience he's in front of, and he still wasn't trusted with a decent run. And you can't blame his age because it feels like half the roster is over 40 at this point. Age is no longer a barrier in WWE. Then you've got the Brock Lesnar situation. Lesnar walks back into the company despite an ongoing lawsuit, with no explanation on television, no real build-up, and no logical reason why the fans should care. But Triple H wanted the name value, so Brock's back and getting booked strong, and he's being inserted into huge matches like nothing happened. And look, all of this wouldn't be so bad if Triple H's booking was actually good, but this year has proved that he can't book long-term storylines for shit. Back in 2023, long-term storytelling was the one thing we all assumed that he was naturally good at. But 2025 has exposed that for the myth that it was. Nothing has landed or paid off. Look at John Cena's heel turn. Triple H had a once-in-a-generation moment and completely wasted it. Instead of reshaping Cena into a genuine villain with purpose, he left him as the same character in the same gear, only now he was sulking and complaining. The promos were flat and his character had no depth. Nothing about the presentation felt dangerous or fresh. Us long-term fans have been waiting for a Cena heel turn since about 2007, but we've all been left thinking that they just shouldn't have bothered. What a waste of Cena's limited time left in the company. So they turned him back babyface, but incredibly, the retirement tour hasn't been much better. He's had 36 final dates, and almost none of them have felt like they've mattered. The company has treated the whole thing like an obligation rather than a celebration, like they're just going through the motions to run his contract down. This should have been one of the easiest things to book in the entire year, but just like Vince, Triple H is proving that he can start big ideas, but he can't finish them. The women's division and the tag divisions were also massively neglected in 2025. By February, multiple women on the roster were openly frustrated because the booking had no direction. Some didn't even know whether they were meant to be heels or babyfaces, and according to Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful Select, that confusion was real enough that talent were directly asking creative what role they were even supposed to be playing. And by the way, the introduction of all these extra championships is just because Triple H couldn't be bothered to give anyone a real story. Booking around titles is easy, but coming up with actual storylines is the part that requires a bit of thought. WWE got rid of several female wrestlers in May this year, which instantly killed what was left of the women's tag team division. But the men's division wasn't any better. Then there was Jey Uso. Fans had waited years to see him finally reach that level. Then when he won the title, he ended up losing it after 56 days. Look, I'm not a huge fan of Jey Uso. To me, he should never have gotten that push in the first place, but I would have respected it more if they'd backed themselves and tried to make it work. Take Gunther. His Intercontinental title run was genuinely impressive, but the moment he became World Heavyweight Champion, everything went to hell. His reign had no energy behind it, and instead of elevating him, it somehow dragged him down. Rhea Ripley was another wasted opportunity this year, the hottest woman on the roster, and she was totally misused for most of the year. She spent 2025 stuck in the same recycled main event spots with no story or character progression. But if there's one part of WWE that should never feel lifeless, it's the main event. But in 2025, Triple H has somehow turned it into the most boring part of the entire show. Cody Rhodes, his title run should have defined this era of WWE, but with even nearly 400 days as champion, barely any of it was memorable. They just had him treading water. And you want to talk about Triple H and long-term storytelling? We've got to talk about the Bloodline, a storyline that should have ended at WrestleMania 40 a year and a half ago, was dragged through yet another year. Triple H tried to push Solo Sikoa as the new centerpiece of the faction, even though the fans weren't reacting to him. We do not want the Bloodline 2.0 if the story is just going to be the same all over again. There's plenty of other stuff I could talk about in this video, but you get the point. It's incredible how WWE has gone off a cliff this year, creatively, and so much of this stuff is easy to fix. Maybe it's time for Triple H to step aside, because his booking at the moment is almost bad enough to make me wish that Vince was back in the hot seat.